The Writers' Museum is an enchanting building dedicated to keeping the memory of some of the most prolific poets and novelists immortalised. Edinburgh has commemorated its novelists and poets in grand fashions differing from museums, all the way to the Scots Monument, dedicated to Sir Walter Scott, our focus for today's programme.
Well, the closes of Old Edinburgh were actually quite narrow, maybe 10-12 feet wide, so you have to imagine this building not in an open square as it is now, but off a narrow alleyway with buildings above and below it. The house was built in 1622. The original occupant was actually William Gray and his wife Gyda Smith. The close and the house were originally actually called Lady Gray's house after Gyda Smith, obviously. She lived here during her long widowhood. Lady Stair is their granddaughter. She bought the house in the early 18th century. So it was occupied as a family home till about the 19th century when the old town started to fall into poverty and disrepair, and at that point it was abandoned. His family had a house in George Square in Edinburgh. I mean, he was from a reasonably well-off background. He had polio as a child. He was sent away for several years to live in the borders and then returned at the age of 7 to live in his family's home again and also to go to the Royal High School. He started at Edinburgh University at age 12. He studied classics there and later went on to study law. He married in his early 20s and he moved out of Edinburgh to Abbotsford in the countryside after his writing became lucrative and he struck in the money. During the 19th century, as I say, the city fell into quite a lot of poverty and disrepair. Various people, including Walter Scott, were quite keen on campaigning for Edinburgh's heritage, so saving the old buildings, and Scott, of course, being a historical novelist, he had quite a fan base who were also quite keen on historical novels that he could mobilise. The one that specifically dealt with this building was actually Patrick Geddes, who was a lecturer at the university and an innovative town planner. So it was refurbished, and then because he didn't particularly have a use for it, it was left to the city in 1903 on condition that it became a museum, and so it's become the Writers' Museum.
This concludes our programme on the enigmatic, rich history of this grand building, along with the lavish life of Sir Walter Scott. Thanks to buildings like this, his integral place in history will live on forever.